Thank you for all that you've let us know so far. And you've painted us two very different pictures, the reality in Norway and then the reality in Finland. And I'd just like to ask, why are they so different? I mean, obviously we know that Norway is not a part of the European Union. You have your oil, but still again, two educated democracies. Anni, please.
Okay, that's an interesting question, and of course, not knowing the Norwegian situation totally, it's really difficult to talk to on your guys' behalf. But what I see, one thing that I see that is a couple of things are really different in the Norwegian and in the Finnish system. First one is the financial benefit that the municipality gets from the green transition investments in Finland. We've had that on all the time, and the money was increased already in 2018, so before actually the merchant investment started. 75% of our installed capacity has been installed since 2019, and it's been done without any governmental subsidies. Something that Dag touched upon in his presentation, that the governmental subsidies are not very well liked. So our projects have been merchant. And there's been always money involved to the municipality. The other thing, in my opinion, is actually our planning legislation. In Finland, it's the municipality who does the spatial planning. It's the municipality who decides where they will start doing the zoning of the, for example, wind farm or PV panels or whatever. So to my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, from Norway it was at least earlier done from top down, so that it was actually the state that would have decided where these projects were to be located, and the local municipalities and local people didn't really have the say in the process, or it was just like being opponent of the project. So I think that in somehow the Finnish system has worked better. Sorry, guys.
I think it's hard to answer precisely. I think I noticed your graphs that support for wind power has ebbed and flowed in many markets. Of course, now with the Swedes taking over the whole thing. But it's important to remember that wind power hasn't always been controversial in Norway. It was actually a great political drive, and the Social Left Party, which now, I'd say, objects quite strongly to onshore wind, used to have wind turbines on their posters. So I think the resistance is a result of a number of causes, but you're pointing to one of them. There was initially they were sort of planned in dialogue between developers and local municipalities, but then there was this idea of a national frame for wind power, where, not unlike the acceleration zones that you have in the Renewables Directive, where the state identified zones were supposed to be in the right zones. That thing failed miserably. It might have been a good idea, but it didn't work well. So I think the lesson from this is that developing wind farms is really a matter of delicate dialogue with local municipalities, and especially I guess Norwegians and Finns are pretty much like in that respect, that they don't like being told what to do. They don't like getting the feeling that someone's putting wind turbines there without them being able to affect it. So having the right sort of permitting process to allow for that I think is key.
There is also very important, I think, to bring in the perspective on Oslo versus the districts. So when I do polling on this, every time I bring in the question about wealth of Norway is created in the districts. It's like a 70% yes, I agree with that. And also that Oslo is just an administrative capital with no value creation whatsoever. And the thing about the renewable energy debate is totally Oslo dominated. And of course, there is a big difference between the Nordic countries when it comes to the view on whether people should live out in the districts.
Central versus
Central,
periphery.
rural, and the fishery and the oil sector, of course, and you know, there is a proudness that is really political and potent when it comes to the districts. So if you had a situation where really self-government out in the rural areas were total, I think you would have a total different conversation. But since everything is so Oslo decided, and they take away all the sort of profit from this, it just emphasizes how the rural and the central conflict is. So you get into the really identity politics once again.
And Mikko.
Yeah, maybe one quite big thing is actually the geopolitics. So only a few years ago, Finland used to import 10% of our electricity and all of our gas from Russia. Also, a big chunk of biomass that it's used to heat the cities was imported from Russia, and all that has stopped. And it's evident for every Finn that it's way better the current situation where we produce our energy and electricity mostly by ourselves.
You wanted to add something, did you?
Yes. In terms of the economy, where I guess then fundamentally different, because we are, and that's also you mentioned as part of our identity almost, that we're big exporters of fossil fuels, and I personally believe that we should continue to be so in the current situation. But that certainly also helped shaped how we think of renewables, I think.
So we know what's going on in our countries right now, that in Norway it's declining and in Finland it's still on a good level. But what about where are we heading to? I mean, Dag-Inge, have you seen, like, do you see that there might be a change coming? And is Finland prepared for a change?
Yeah, sorry, me
Go,
first.
yeah, so.
There is a tendency to, I think, sort of have a renewed perspective on the Nordic. Because Norway has been very pro United States, very positive, and we have thought we don't need the EU. We have protection through NATO and the US. We don't really, and then we have seen the change in the perspective of the US, and this Nordic and Finland and Sweden coming into NATO, and everyone is talking about the Nordic total defense, and I think that's a path forward, because that's a different conversation.
A different narrative, yeah.
And Nordic defense, military defense, hence Nordic energy market in the same vein. I think that's a path forward. But these things doesn't happen overnight. And I work closely with a community way up north, Andøya, and they are of course very concerned about because they were the NATO base up there. And they all of a sudden wasn't, and then the Ukraine situation happened, and then they were on again as a NATO base. And the way up north, I think energy, security, connecting all of this in the Nordic discourse could be a strategy forward. And then all these cables make sense. Yeah.
Annika.
Well, yeah, if I like to, if I can continue from that, from the cables, I think us in Finland, or the Finns, have mainly always seen that we need the interconnections to the neighbors, that we need to be connected. There is the debate from some political parties, not mentioned aloud, that okay, it's the sort of same that you guys said about the exports. That we shouldn't just build the electricity production and export the electricity, or we just shouldn't build hydrogen production and export the hydrogen, that it should be, that we should be able to also have the end products production here in Finland. which I find a little bit worrying in a situation when the Finnish economics, the Finnish finances have been in a really poorly state for several years. Like the Finnish economy hasn't grown in 17 years. And then we have politicians who are saying that, well, we don't want these investments here. I think that we don't have the possibility to say no, but like we see this fluctuation in debate, fluctuation in acceptance, and you asked if we are prepared. We try to be. If we can be, that's always difficult to predict that, like, what is the topic that will be increased. I bet you guys or the colleagues that I knew from Norway before for your time in the association, they were not prepared on this really strong opposition against the exports, the electricity exports. It was a bit of a shock, I think, to all of the Nordic wind power association, how that discussion started in Norway. So it's really difficult to see that what is coming next.
Because
I think the Nordic perspective is one that's both important and viable. Once we portray cooperation as Nordic, it's all the more acceptable. And it's funny about these cables to Denmark. They're controversial. We're also strongly connected to Sweden. That's not discussed at all. So I think we really need to make interconnection great again.
Mikko.
Easy to agree with that. I used to be responsible for planning the interconnectors at Fingrid for some years, and I know that first of all, they are very long projects, so they easily take 10 years. For example, the ones that I mentioned in my presentation, they are expected to be ready in 35 and later. And maybe one thing is that we often think about the interconnectors as a single individual projects, whereas we should think about more as a holistic plan for the whole Nordics or whole Europe. And the idea that we have been pondering among the TSOs and especially in Fingrid, that maybe we should try to make some kind of a package sort of the Nordic interconnector project, so that everyone gets something.
Mikko, I still want to go back to the question that I asked. I mean, if we are ready in Finland for also that the public opinion might change, because I heard you say that electricity consumption will double by 2040, didn't you? So do people really understand what this means? I mean, do they understand the scale? How big the solar farms will actually be? Or then during lunch we talked about the hydrogen plants. If people can really, they say yes to them now, but do they understand how they will look like? And, I think it is a good question to say that what will happen to nature if we have wind farms all over. So,
probably first, maybe I start and then Anni can continue. But I personally also showed the figures, but we shouldn't take them for granted. It's not evident that the consumption will double. It will only double if we are competitive and we are able to increase our production. If there is no new production, there is no increase of electricity consumption in that scale, since we are not competitive for the new industries. So this is something that we have to understand in this situation and sort of do what we can to improve the public acceptance of these new investments, both in the grid side, but definitely in the renewables as well.
Anni.
Yeah, I think that the amount of electricity consumption in Finland is sort of a signal of the status of our economy. that if it stays the electricity consumption in 83 terawatt hours that it has been since 2008 or something, from 80 to 87 terawatt hours annually, that means that we don't have economic growth in Finland. And this is something that is really difficult also to explain people who are really concerned about the increase of the economic growth. And it is a really difficult topic, especially what we heard, what Dag was saying about the different topics and how to address people. That is not a really appealing topic. But I wanted to touch upon the biodiversity loss that you brought up, because I thought that it was really interesting in your presentation. We've been doing a lot of work in our association in the biodiversity issues over the past year. And what we see is that you can't really solve the question of climate change without taking into account also the biodiversity. That those problems go in hand. In the Nordic countries, one of the key reasons for the causes for the biodiversity loss is the climate change. So when we solve it, that's also good. But then there are always the impacts on a local level, on the local biodiversity. And for example, we have the target that from 2030 onwards, all the onshore wind farms and solar PV plants would be biodiversity positive, meaning that at first you avoid the impacts, then you compensate what you cannot avoid. So this is something that we have to take really seriously, and it's also part of the public acceptance.
This is the Montreal agreement.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because the Green Party, MDG in Norway, the Green Party, has said it plainly. In order to reach both the climate goals and the Montreal Agreement on biodiversity, we have to stop developing cabins. We have to stop building cabins.
We can't.
Hytter.
The cottages. Cottages.
Because that doesn't connect. Because the nature that goes to cabins, hytter, and windmill at the same time, no, then we break the Montreal Agreement. So the Green Party has said, stop the cabins. And then you are attacking the investor class because they have to have 3 cabins.
Oh yeah.
One in the snow part, one in the water, down
one in Tuscany,
and then the Tuscany, of course. So so every time this come, okay, what do you choose? The Montreal Agreement and environmental things, and losing your cabin, your right to a cabin, then it collapses. But it's really interesting because that is the situation. If you look at the areal that you need for the wind turbines and at the same time building cabins, it doesn't go hand in hand. And at the same time, all the local craftsmen that work with building cabins, they lose their job. They have to move away from the rural areas, etc. So it's really interesting to see the debate when it comes down to this. You have to choose. And then the debate gets really ugly.
Did you have your hand up?
I wanted to comment on the biodiversity a bit, because it's not that all the wind farms we put up in the previous wave were bad at all, but there's now a much stronger focus on finding the right solutions for biodiversity. But secondly, we really need to find a way to combine local acceptance with prioritizing land use for renewable energy. And I think that's also the idea between the somewhat controversial bit of overriding public interest in the EU's renewables directive. Renewables energy is key to energy security, climate, and sustainability. Hence, we need to prioritize scarce areas for that.
Summing up a bit, is it possible to create a win-win situation where actually the benefits and the costs associated with the large-scale expansion of renewable energy would be shared in a fair manner among citizens?
Well, I think that totally it is. That you can do it. You can also take in the account the biodiversity, but that does not mean that each and every single person would be happy with the result. This is something that we all dealing with the projects, doing the scientific studies, especially the decision makers would have to understand that you can't find a location to renewable energy production facility that each and every inhabitant and a cottage owner in that municipality would agree with. I see that that's impossible. We can find a really good balance between different factors, but not the acceptance of each and everybody.
No, I think it should be possible, and you need a number of things. You need a good permitting system, you need sensible developers, but you also need sort of the understanding that the power is useful locally. But I think in terms of compensation, we have now an interesting situation in Norway where the landowners who get the land lease from the turbine, they're happy. The municipality is happy because they receive income, but the other local populace aren't necessarily compensated. So you really need to have the right set of compensation mechanisms and sharing of benefits.
Anni?
Of course, in Finland, what we see is that the property tax is used to benefit for the whole municipality, like in Kalajoki, where you have plenty of wind turbines, and for quite a long time, Kalajoki also received the highest tax revenue from wind turbines. They have built new school center with the money. They have lowered the tax rate of the local people and so on. But it's difficult for the person living next to the wind farm to understand that I benefit by getting better services from the municipality because I don't see it in my own pocket. So that's the challenge.
Like Dag said, it's really about identity and politics. I mean, we're all talking about, very rationally about this, but it's not about rational thinking, is it?
We are, everyone here is feeling machines that thinks.
True.
We are feeling machines that think. And if you go to Professor Cialdini and Professor Kahneman, they all say that the fear of loss is more emotional than the possibility of gaining.
Yes.
So it takes 2 to 3 times as powerful gain in order to compensate for a fear of a loss. And when you see who are benefiting from all these government subsidies, who are running away with the millions in subsidies, what kind of people are they? Well, how do they look on television? I mean, every time there is a renewable energy person on television in a debate in Norway, they are young, they are highly trained, they are openly marathon runners, very successful people, and that makes an impact. The common man struggles with his overweight and some sort of deep thoughts about the uncertain future. And seeing these guys on television talking about the green shift and everyone, we just have to go through it, you sort of, fuck him.
We're laughing,
that's another. You have to show the local benefits.
Yeah. Exactly. We're laughing, but it's totally understandable.
Yes, absolutely.
And we do see populism on the rise. We see right-wing parties gaining popularity across Europe. So we do have to find a solution for this, that this has become identity politics. So but can you find a solution for me now?
No, I mean, here we are in the Nordics. Just think about Germany. I mean, if Germany becomes deindustrialized, I mean, Jesus, what is going to happen in Europe? If we lose Germany, and they're looking backwards and they're trying to, protect themselves. And then we should postpone the green transition for 20 years. probably a reasonable solution, so it's conclusion, in order to avoid AFD getting in power.
No, I'm optimistic because the drivers for more renewables are so many. It's not just climate; it's also security. It's competitiveness. It's creating local industries, and I think it's a matter of showing that and showing it locally, and not just sitting in Oslo and talking about climate. Then I think we can get something going.
Yeah, is the problem actually talking about climate and naming it green transition? If we
could be in some contexts.
Could we have different narratives for different people?
Homegrown energy.
Yeah, well, absolutely we could, and we also have. I know that there are also some of our members are here, and then like project developers and people who've used to work for wind power developers, and when they go to a municipality to present the project, they usually bring up the local jobs that they can provide, all the local benefits. So there are definitely local companies and workers of local companies who know that they can get work from there. But our wind farms won't, or solar PV plants won't hire each and every person from the municipality. Like my father is from pulp and paper industry originally. We've been living in Kaskinen, which is like 2,000 inhabitants, and from every family there was somebody in the pulp mill. So there you see the benefit of the pulp mill really, like it's really concrete.
It's uniting the community.
Yes. And we don't have such an employment effects, even though we have. If you look at like in Finland, that how many people are working in operation and maintenance, they are located locally because you have to be able to access the turbine quite easily. But they are not in one municipality. Well, in Kalajoki there are probably 100 already, but in most of the municipalities it's only few people. So it's not more difficult to bring up the topic.
It's not clear. No.
It's not clear, but definitely it is a narrative that is used and brought up when you discuss the project.
I had many hands up there, please.
Yeah, I was going to comment on the industrial connection. You see, for instance, many municipalities in Norway benefiting from already wind farms having a PPA, a power purchase agreement, with the local industry. They're happy, and the existing wind farm municipalities are generally happy. It's more of the new areas that's a challenge.
Yeah, going back to the point about the craftsmen and energy saving, which is a huge effect on the need for energy. You know, if everyone isolated their house and made those adjustments, and this goes back to people are willing to live safely in order to reduce their insurance. You're willing to send your data to the insurance company to prove that you're a regular jogger. You are willing to reduce the alcohol amount in order to get lower insurance premiums. So people are then, of course, willing to isolate their house when they can get cheaper loans, the green loans. And again, the effect of that is among a very important group to see positive things about the green transition. The craftsmen, the men without higher university degrees, because they are against it. They need to get to be for it, and then they need to see that their role is so valuable. And that is very important. And when it comes to bathrooms and showers, etc., in Norway, you have to have a certificate in order to do that because of the insurance, etc. So there's so many problems that could be solved about focusing on energy saving in houses. And do it maybe over 10 to 15 years range, and be very reasonable with the public subsidies of that. And it's so I think that is a way forward that is really important.
Øystein?
I'd fully agree, but I'll also add that energy efficiency will only take us thus far. So the need for more power to drive electrification and industrial growth is very real. And yeah, so.
As a last question, what do you think would be, if you would have to choose one action that would either secure or get more public acceptance for this transition? What would it be, and by whom? What group is the key holder here? Mikko, and
Maybe
then
to start,
Øystein.
somehow I feel that everything new is a bit scary, and what we need now is good examples of these industrial investments that come here because of the green power. We have a lot of projects on the table now, right now, but not that many investment decisions and actual plants that are operating. So one or two investment decisions, please, and let's have good examples where people see the concrete benefits. They see the tax benefit and the workplaces. I'm pretty positive that would improve the public acceptance and general opinion.
Øystein.
I'd agree to that, and if I consider just one thing, I think it's just the abstract. You need the right distribution of advantages and disadvantages.
Kadini or Arni?
We'll talk first.
Yeah, I think connecting industries, production places that uses renewable energy direct without any export possibilities. It's a way of sort of, okay, we see that it can work like that. You have to build acceptance on that. And of course, bankrupt municipalities getting money and being proud again. You know, having their identity as a rural northern area with a lot of money to spend on education for pupils. That would be a direct effect that I think would you know, tell a story to other municipalities. And again, the craftsman thing. So there's many, but I think you should detach the discourse about this grid transition away from the academics, and find the arguments, find the perspectives among the common man and woman, and you should really work on that.
Yeah, it's really difficult to add anything to that, but yeah, what I see, I agree that the consumption and production, like large-scale consumption, new factories, and then the production, electricity production, if they would be combined, seen together, that would be good. And then what I said when I was answering the question that Mikko threw the ball at me was that I see in each and every project the importance of the local discussion. As I said earlier, you can't win each and everybody from the municipality behind your project, but being open, having a real discussions, being able to really also listen out what the people say, that's really important.
Thank you so much. Before I let you go, a question to the audience. You've been great, you've been silent, you've just been listening. But now I would ask you to just turn to your neighbor and discuss what's been, you know, like what's top of mind for you right now after this day. And while you discuss, I will give you presents.
Nice, thank you.
Would anyone want to share? We're going to, Julia has the microphone, so if anyone, a few people just say what's on your mind, please.
Hello, Daniel is my name. Thank you very much for the reflections. I just want to add, somebody was talking about, independency, and we were talking here when we at LabLab, when we work in the Baltic countries, now it's just the Nordic countries, and we don't have the presence of the Baltic countries. When speaking with them about green energy transition, the first thing they bring up is independency. So I think it's also interesting that, you know, there is a totally different discourse. Green energy, yes, of course, because we're part of the European Union, but independency. And then second, I think is really, really valuable. If you have not seen the curve when Lithuania did join the European Union, when they shut down the nuclear power, it's a vertical 19 degrees. It goes like this. I think that's a very, very interesting, to study how come that a society is able to shut down a nuclear power and then continue to be up and running and be part of the European Union. So I strongly recommend you to study that one and ask what does it mean to live in that society and that it continues to live strongly. Yes.
Thank you, Daniel. And we have... No. Okay, yes, because I was not going to give you the possibility to comment, but I am going to give you the possibility.
Jaakko Aikonen, STTK, so from trade union in Finland. Yeah, we were talking about the independence. And I said, when I talk with members, with employees in Finland about this topic, I talk less and less about the climate change. I believe fully that it's a very big problem. But when I talk with our members, I talk about jobs, and I talk about cheap energy, and I talk about investments, and I talk about geopolitics, about Russia. Then I say, oh, by the way, if we fail, you're going to be ruined, but that's a different thing. Let's talk about jobs. So that is one thing I would like to say. The second thing is, even though I'm quite positive about Finland, I would still say the politics is the weakest link here as well. I've been enough in parliament, and I met enough MEPs who are very doubtful about the whole thing. In Finnish we say it's huuhaata, it's nothing, it's humbug. And I met too many of those, so I think we are quite close to the edge. Even though I'm positive, I think we can still win it because of the economics and technology. But I think there's a danger of political backlash also happening in Finland, like we had in the US and European Parliament.
Thank you so much. One more comment. One more. Yes, please.
So I'm Mona Nilsson from University of Vasa, and from the social science point of view and working with the public acceptance as a researcher also in projects. And I was discussing with somebody coming more from the technology point of view. I would just simply reflect upon the need of resources in terms of time and money. And I think this is something we would need to really look into much, much more. So it's still, I see that we focus on the economic calculations and the technology development and all of that. But if it's around the public engagement and getting the public support to kind of invest in terms of time and money also into that, because it's nothing you can do with just one information session. It's a constant dialogue, and you would need to do it long term. So to make sure to really focus on that enough.
Thank you so much. I know there were questions coming in through the system. I'm sorry I didn't ask them. I didn't tell you that I'm not going to take questions for the panel. But luckily you have the dinner coming tonight at 7. You can continue the discussion. Do not forget your questions.